YouTube vinyl community, Paul McCartney fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we're here today to talk about Paul McCartney's second solo album, McCartney II, released in 1980. A fascinating album, and as you can see, this is a CD copy of it, but a wonderful album for a guy that spent most of the 70s making pretty calculated pop rock. I'd say the last half of the 70s. To hear him put out something like this is wonderful because it takes everything you loved about McCartney I, Ram, some of Band on the Run, and kind of mixes it together in an early 80s sort of new wavy experimental kind of setup, and the results are fantastic. It's an album that is definitely unexpected. If you're a Paul McCartney fan, you've never heard something like this before from Paul, it might be a little bit jarring or off-putting at first, but the more you play it, the more that you discover how much of it is so him. And that's what I love so much about it, is that on the first album, on McCartney I, you hear his style, you hear his technique, how he plays the drums, how he plays the guitar, what his bass playing is going to be like. We know his bass playing, but hearing that into this context 10 years later, after he's done so well for himself, becoming one of the best-selling artists of all time throughout the 70s, for a guy that started his solo career with so much negative press, where everyone's like, this album sucks, he's never gonna make it. Even Ringo was like, there's not a good song on it. Like, to hear him transition between that to Band on the Run, to his huge tours with Wings, to, Mull of Kintyre is one of the best-selling songs in England of all time. He really outdid himself in terms of coming up with music that people will love and respond to and people cherish now. He had to fight for that. So to hear him let loose and have fun with recordings that were never intended to come out, and then they did come out, is a fascinating testament to how creative this guy is. He did most of these songs in the summer of 1979 just for fun, just to goof around and just see what he can come up with and not go to a studio, not have anything super serious to do, because he was getting kind of bored of the whole go to the studio with songs prepared, have, teach the band how to do it, make the band album, make this perfect document of music. He wanted to just let loose and have fun, and that's what this is. He also did Wonderful Christmas Time during this time too. But, at the end of 1979, they did a very small UK tour with Wings, and then in early January of 1980, they were supposed to go to Japan, and that's where he got busted for weed, where they found a ton of weed on him, and he had to cancel the tour. He spent 9 days in jail, and when he came back, once they let him out, he sort of had to reconfigure his life and figure out what exactly he wants to do. So he put Wings on hold, and he said, you know what, maybe I'll just put out this stuff that I did last summer as a break, just something different, a change for myself. And that's what he did. And this particular CD is a 1993 copy with 3 bonus tracks at the end. It's got Check My Machine, Secret Friend, and Good Night Tonight, which was the Wings single from 1979. But the disc is very cool. It's just a plain, boring sleeve. This was the Paul McCartney collection in the early 90s. Kind of like what they're doing now with the remasters, but this is how they looked back in the day. Which, it kind of is weird to see this tiny little picture. You have this whole big frame to use, and it got this tiny little thing. And then here you got the actual disc with a little etching of Paul's face there, which you can kind of see. And then the other albums you could buy at the time. I adore this album. It's an album for me that I've had this disc. I got this when I was in high school, so I've had it for a long time, 2 years. And every time I go back to this album, it reminds me again of how much I like it. But it's funny because it's not one that I put on all the time, but when I do, it's fantastic. So it opens up with Coming Up, which, there was a previous version of this, the live version with Wings, that came out as a single, and that was a humongous smash hit for him. And this song in particular also was as well, the studio version. But what a funky, groovy beat. I mean, I love hearing Paul's drumming because he can keep a steady rhythm so well, but the way he attacks the snare is a very particular sound. If you're a fan of the Beatles, you know how Ringo hits the snare. Hearing Paul hit the snare, he's a very different kind of drummer, but I like his technique because it's not like super, like, I'm the drummer. It's like, no, I can do this. I'm not going to call myself a drummer, but I can do this. And the confidence is there, and I love that. The thumping minimal bass is cool. The myriad sax solos all over this thing. It's just a crazy, funky jam, and with a good message about positivity coming your way. in a time in Paul's life where he got arrested for weed and had to spend time in jail, and he wasn't sure if he was going to come out, because that was a humongous criminal offense at that time. He could have spent a long time in there. Luckily, he got out. Wonderful song, great way to open the album. Temporary Secretary, I was very fortunate to see him play this song live in 2015, which was the first tour where he started to do that again. It was the first time he'd ever played it. And hearing it live, I remember looking around at people in the audience, kind of seeing their reaction. And a lot of them were like, "What is this?" And some of them were like, "Whoa, this is, oh man." This was actually a single too, if you could believe that. It's awesome. It's such a computer synthy freak out. I love the acoustic guitars that match the vocal. It's sort of like, I don't want to say like detuned guitars. So this have this sort of like morbid. It's just got this like downtrodden feel that like blends towards the slightly optimistic sounding vocal delivery. And Paul has said that he liked the idea of a temporary secretary. Those two words together just sounded strange, so that's kind of why he put it together. But there's so much tension on this thing. It's just a jammer the whole way through. I love this song. On the Way, what a groove. This one sounds like total Paul McCartney McCartney 1, if you will. Awesome reverb on this thing. Paul Steady's drumming is fantastic. I love that guitar riff. The use of empty space is wonderful. It's just a magical song that begs for more listens. Then you get Waterfalls, which a lot of people have claimed is the only song on the album. It is the most Paul McCartney, if you will, that people were used to at that point in time after hearing songs like With a Little Luck and Silly Love Songs. Hearing Waterfalls was like the next progression of that era of his songwriting. And it's a beautiful track. I mean, it's heartbreaking, it's melodic, it's nostalgic. There's so much going on in the way of emotion on this track. And the way he sings it is very tender and lovingly. It's a very well-presented vocal track from Paul on this one. Just a really smooth delivery. I love this song. And this particular version is the album version, so it's a lot longer than the single version. But just an excellent, excellent song. Track 5, Nobody Knows. I love this one. It's just an upbeat, high-energy rocker, really raucous Paul vocals, which we haven't had in a long time. At that time, the last time you had crazy Paul vocals were like, pre-Wings of the Speed of Sound, I guess a little bit before Venus and Mars, that kind of stuff. So to hear him kind of freak out, do crazy vocals, it's so good to hear him let loose. There's nothing complicated about this one, which I think is why it was placed sequentially after Waterfalls, which is a pretty dense song. So to have a bit of light, upbeat kind of fun is well placed. Then you got Front Parlor, which I love this. It has like this like water pipe synthy sound and great electronic flutes all over this thing, and it sounds like video game music before video games. I mean, I know they existed at that point, but it sounds like Paul's ahead of himself yet again. Great song. Love the warmth on that one. Summer's Day Song. This is a great McCartney classic melodic track. Love his sweet vocals on this, the flutes, the heavier bass synths underneath it all. It sounds like A Morning on Mars. And a lot of people have made the comparison to Side 2 of Low by David Bowie that kind of like permeates throughout this album, but in a more up-tempo, melodic McCartney kind of way. Like if McCartney was trying to cover Low, some of this stuff is kind of resembling that, which I can dig that, I can see it. Very touching arrangement on this track. It's meant to evoke sort of times gone by and maybe summers you had when you were a kid that you like to have again. Track 8, Frozen Japanese. I'm going to call it that because, it's kind of a derogatory term, really. Frozen Japanese, this song is very cool. Super heavy reverb on this one. The synth also sounds icy, so it gives this feeling of like, icicles dripping or something. A very tangible sort of feeling on this one. But I love the layered drum track, the hand claps. It's a very unique, fascinating instrumental. One thing Paul's really good at with his instrumental tracks is that even though there's no vocals on them, you still want to listen to them and see what's going to happen next, which is a pretty hard thing to do with instrumental music. But, he's Paul McCartney. Bogey music. This song is awesome. What a crazy song. 50s style rock and roll romp, fun and funky, nothing too complicated or crazy. It's just a lighthearted bit of fun. Can't go wrong. Number 10 with Dark Room. This song is awesome. It's just a Paul having a super energetic, high octane vocal on this one. Very hypnotic feeling, bouncy bass. Love the dizzying synths on here. It's a total groove. And I really love, again, hearing Paul let loose. I think he needed this as like a medicine for himself to shake off the, perfection that he was required of him throughout the late 70s to just have a laugh. And then One of These Days, a classic acoustic ballad. Paul could have fit this anywhere on Band on the Run or even on Ram, maybe. It's just a fantastic, sweet song. Love the echo on his voice in a very tender way to end the LP. But yeah, it's as I've repeated myself here over and over again, that's why I like the Fireman album, the stuff he's done with Youth, Liverpool Sound Collage. We know Paul could be super melodic and make some of the best music of all time. Hearing him go funky and go weird is fantastic, and people don't realize that Paul did a lot of that stuff. I think these days people look back and think of John as the only one who made experimental music, but also George did too. They all had their times and their moments of weirdness, and I think that's what keeps them fresh. When you're a songwriter, the last thing you want to do is repeat yourself over and over again. So to put out an album like this, and then thusly end Wings, and then start the next phase of his solo career, again, another gutsy move. Wings were a super popular band, and to sort of, break off all of that, he was going to start a new album, which was going to become the Tug of War album after this. And he told Steve Holley and Lawrence Struber, "Don't think I need you guys." And Denny Lane had been there almost since day one. And he got to the point where he was like, you know what, we're not going to tour anymore. I'm not sure where my place is with these new songs. I'm going to head out too, Paul. And thusly, Paul was like, you know what, that's it, Wings is done. Which he kind of denied for a few months, but then during the summer of 1980, he said, yeah, we're all done. So by 1981, when he started working on Tug of War, Denny Lane was still around. He helped out a lot with that album, but that was kind of it after that. So, it's funny how they follow the end of an era. So McCartney 1 came out after the Beatles were breaking up. McCartney 2 came out while Wings were breaking up. And now we got McCartney 3 coming up. And that's just because, 2020. But so I love this album. Absolutely love this album. Instant 9 out of 10 for me. Fantastic record. And I love having the B-sides on here too. Check My Machine. What a funky song, man. This is an awesome track. Secret Friend is like a 10-minute jammer. And Goodnight Tonight, classic Wing song. But yeah, 9 out of 10. No problem. My name is Giggens. This has been Paul McCartney. McCartney II, released in 1980. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys thought about this thing. And we'll talk about some McCartney. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.